Hello and welcome back to Chart Toppers. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be ranking all of the Chapter 5 POIs on this tier list here. So without further ado, let's get started. So first on the list is Brawler's Battleground. This was honestly one of my least favorite spots on the Chapter 5 map. I thought it was cool when it was first announced, but of all the Chapter 5 Season 2 locations, it was probably my least favorite, so I'm going to put in C for now. Brawler's Patch is next. This was kind of like the upgraded version of Brawler's Battleground. It was pretty much the same exact thing, but it did have a little bit more there. It had that pumpkin boss that dropped a little bit of decent stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in B tier. It's just kind of a better version of Brawler's Battleground. Alright, up next we got Brutal Beachhead. This was a pretty cool spot. Came in Chapter 5 Season 3. It was not my favorite of the Chapter 5 Season 3 locations, but definitely pretty cool. Had decent loot. When Megalodon was there, they had the boss car. That was always cool. I'll put it in B tier. I think it's definitely a B tier location. Nothing great, nothing bad. Next up, Castle Doom. Immediate S tier for me. I think this is one of the coolest locations Fortnite has ever had. It's huge. It's got tons of cool places to explore. All of the cool like little Easter eggs and stuff with the Fantastic Four being there. It's just really cool, and I think it was just a really neat location. The only problem with it was the location. It frequently was kind of in the storm, so you didn't get a chance to really end a lot of games there, but it was a really cool spot. Alright, up next we got Classy Courts. Another spot that was on the Chapter 5 map from the beginning. I'm going to put an A tier. I think Classy Courts was really cool. I played tennis in high school, so I'm kind of partial to that, but I think it was just a really cool looking spot. Had a good amount of loot, kind of like those locations that are split where you have like building on one side and like the tennis courts on the other. I think it really leads well into lots of cool fights. So I'm going to go ahead and put Classy Courts in A tier. Doom's Courtyard. All right, this is going to be a solid D tier for me. I think Doom's Courtyard was the just new version of Classy Courts, but it was worse in every possible way. It took all of what was cool about Classy Courts and just kind of ruined it, really. It was just a bad version of Classy Courts. That may be controversial, I'm not really sure, but did not really like Doom's Courtyard. I think the whole time it was in the game, I probably landed there like 3 times. On the flip side of that, Doom Stott was really cool. I think Doom Stott is going to be an A tier location for me. It was a really cool little city, lots to see, lots of little buildings. You could land there with a whole squad and have plenty of loot. That was where Mysterio was, probably the worst boss of the season to get a good medallion, but his shotgun was good, and it was just a cool spot. I think it was definitely, one of the better ones we had on this chapter. All right, Fencing Fields. I'm going to put Fencing Fields in B tier ahead of Brutal Beachhead. I think that Fencing Fields was one of those spots in Chapter 5 Season 1 that was just like constant action, and that was always fun. I mean, you could really get into some good fights, but at the same time, landing there was just a death trap, and I'm kind of somebody who likes to land a little bit off the beaten path, so Fencing Fields, while it was cool, I didn't really land there that much, but every game it seemed like ended up there, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm putting it in B tier, because I feel like I was there a lot, which at least it was a good spot, but I was there almost too much to really enjoy it as much as some of the others. Okay, Freaky Fields. This is one of the newer locations here, and it was only in the game for, a month during Fortnite. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. Probably put it at the end of B tier. A lot of cool stuff. The Saw collab was neat to see. Farms in general in Fortnite are kind of classic, iconic, but Freaky Fields wasn't my favorite farm we've ever had, but certainly wasn't the worst. Grand Glacier. All right, this one's a good one. Got to go S tier. This one may be controversial, but love Grand Glacier. I was so happy to see it stay around for the entirety of Chapter 5. I think it was just such a cool spot. I'm a sucker for the snowy areas anyway, and a big giant hotel in the middle of the snowy mountains just looked awesome, and the loot there was consistently good. You had enough for a full squad, easy. Lots of easy rotation methods pretty much every season. I just really like this area. There were a lot of like little smaller areas around it too to loot up, so you could kind of hit up Grand Glacier and then go to some of the smaller areas off to the side. Really like this spot. Ooh, another great one, Hazy Hillside. S tier again. It is criminal that this this location was only in one season. I think this was probably my favorite spot on the Chapter 5 Season 1 map. Landed here almost every game. I love the split location with a little bridge in the middle. It reminds me of Misty Meadows from the Chapter 2 map. Just such a cool spot. Awesome fights. Good loot. Had the vault there whenever the vaults were in the game. Just a really cool spot. I definitely think this is an S tier for me. Alright, Grim Gate. I'm going to put Grim Gate. This one's tricky. I think if you're counting it, Chapter 5 Season 2 with the shotgun, it's an A. Otherwise, I got to go B, because I think that Grim Gate, while it was cool looking, especially at first with all the, the water that you could dash around with, it really didn't have a ton there other than the Cerberus shotgun. So just for me, I'm going to put it in the middle of B tier. Good shotgun, nothing really else there. Lavish Lair. Putting Lavish Lair in A tier. Kind of reminds me of Grand Glacier, just a big mansion looking building. I think Lavish Lair had better loot than Grand Glacier, but I just like the location of Grand Glacier better, so I'm going to put it in A tier for Lavish. Obviously, Oscar's Frenzy Auto Shotgun was obscenely good in the game whenever it was there, so I got to give it some points for that. It was in a great location, but just overall not my favorite location. I wouldn't put it in S tier. Mount Olympus. This is another one I got to put in A tier. One of the coolest looking POIs we've ever gotten in Fortnite, in my opinion. Just such a really neat, unique spot. That like orange grass looks so cool. It's so different than anything else we've had. It's a little hard to loot, and there's not a ton of loot there, I feel like, but still a really cool spot. I feel like I died to fall damage a lot there. That's probably just a skill issue, but still really cool spot. Nitrodrome. So this is one that I was like really excited about whenever I first saw it in Chapter 5 Season 3, but I gotta go C tier. It didn't have a ton of loot, and I loved the idea of like getting into these car combat fights in the middle of the Nitrodrome, but like it just didn't really ever happen. Like I never really had that opportunity to be like, oh yeah, let's shoot another car while I'm in a car and try and avoid the spikes and all that. But like realistically, you may do that for like 5 seconds and then they either drive away or your car gets blown up or one or the other. So just not my favorite spot, as cool as it sounded on paper. Pleasant Piazza. I gotta go C tier on this one too. It was in the game for far too long. Cool spot. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. It kind of fit that Chapter 5 Season 1 Italian aesthetic, like so many of these other places. And this one just kind of really didn't do anything to set itself apart like some of the others. So kind of just got kind of forgotten, honestly. I'll put it in C tier. I think it's fine, but it was nothing amazing. All right, Rebel's Roost. So Rebel's Roost is going to go in A tier for me. I really like Rebel's Roost, and it's probably not a super popular pick to put it in A, but I liked it a lot. It was on the edge of the map, which kind of suits well for my play style. It had plenty of loot. This last season with Chapter 5 Season 4, there were several Avengers chests there, which was great for loading up on some decent stuff early when really no one else was going there. There's usually a car that spawns. You can take the car, head right to Classy Courts or Lavish Lair or Doomstot and kind of have an easy rotation. So I like Rebel's Roost. I thought it was pretty good. Reckless Railways. I've probably put this one in B tier. I think Reckless was really cool, Chapter 5 Season 1. The whole train concept, day one, I'm like, this is awesome, game changing. And then you get on the train for the first time and it's like, okay, neat, there's nothing here. And then you have an entire POI based around the train, and it's kind of felt the same way. It was like, okay, there's a train here every few minutes, but otherwise it was just a normal location. Every single game seemed like it ended at Reckless Railways just because where it was at on the map. So we were there a lot, and it's really no fault of Reckless Railways, but when we're at a POI constantly, it just kind of starts to fall down on the list a little bit. All right, Redline Rig. I'm gonna put Redline Rig in C tier. Well, no, I'm actually gonna move it to the end of B tier. I think Redline Rig was definitely cool. The oil rig, aesthetic, it was really neat looking. I just didn't really love any of the Chapter 5 Season 3 POIs. I like the idea of the desert a lot more than I actually like the execution of the desert. I thought it was fine. Decent loot there, and the boss was there sometimes. Like that was cool, but at the same time, just not my favorite. Okay, restored reels. I'm going to go ahead and group restored reels and ruin reels together. Put them in D tier. I think they were pretty much pointless POIs. I don't know if that's popular or not, but for me, I feel like, again, a lot of games ended in this area and there was just nothing there. It was a really boring area to fight in. There were several buildings, a decent amount of loot. That wasn't really the issue with it I had. It was more just, there really just was nothing fun or interesting about either of these locations. And if you got stuck on the little amphitheater steps trying to fight somebody, good luck. Like, it was just miserable trying to fight somebody on those steps. I can't tell you how many times I died trying to fight somebody and I would get stuck on those steps. So maybe that's just a skill issue again, but I'm putting that in D tier. Not my favorite spots. Oh, Ritzy Riviera. I actually kind of forgot about this location. I'm going to put this in A tier. I used to land here a lot, Chapter 5, Season 1. Really like the coastal spots, like I've said before. This just looked really cool. Like, you had all the like little buildings around like the little bay, and there was like the lighthouse kind of area at the end. It was just a cool looking spot. Good amount of loot. Had a vault there where you can mod your weapons and everything. Easy rotation with lots of cars. I like Ritzy. I think it was a cool spot. Sandy Steps. So Sandy Steps was the worst version of Snooty Steps, and I will go ahead and put Snooty Steps in in B, and Sandy Steps in C. So I'll talk about them both at the same time because they're so similar. So Snooty Steps had basically twice as many buildings as Sandy Steps. Sandy Steps was the same exact POI, just covered in sand after the whole desert kind of came in. So Snooty Steps, pretty cool spot. Again, like Ritzy Riviera, had like the little water area and then lots of buildings, that Italian style. Cool spot, good amount of loot. Vault again, I liked it. Definitely thought it was good. Sandy Steps, I still went there a lot because in Chapter 5, Season 3, you could buy a sniper from the girl that was there. So I went there all the time. But overall, it really wasn't an amazing spot. I can't say if that sniper wasn't there, I would land there very often at all. Shipwreck Shallows. Gosh, I barely even remember this place. So this was in during the Pirates of the Caribbean collab. I'm going to put it in D. I'll put it in C tier. It wasn't bad. It was just barely in the game. There really wasn't anything there other than the one ship. It was always a hot drop. I feel like there wasn't a ton of loot there. Using the cannons was cool whenever you got a chance, but just a really hot drop for not a lot of loot. So I'll put it in C tier. The Raft. So if we're going only on medallions and the weapon that's available from the NPC there, it's got to be A, if not S tier. But for me, I got to go B tier for the Raft. I think that actually dropping here and like getting a loadout was not my favorite. Location wise, it was fine, but it was a super hot drop and trying to survive here was really difficult. For me, it's a B tier. It's a cool looking spot. Big Marvel fan. I enjoyed the collab with it, but just didn't really enjoy spending a lot of time there. And then finally, we've got the Underworld. So the Underworld is going to go pretty much right with Grimgate. I think, actually, I'll probably put the Underworld at C tier because Grimgate was definitely the better location of the two. But they're both very similar. I mean, you could really drop me in the middle of both of them and I would have a hard time telling you where I was at. But I enjoy the Underworld. I really liked the water mechanic. That was fun. Unless you were the one shooting at somebody when they had it and you were trying to hit them, then that was really annoying. But overall, cool mechanic. I enjoyed that, but just very forgettable otherwise. So that's my tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think that I could probably move a few of these around on any given day, but overall, I think that this is pretty much what I would go with. I think this is really what I liked in Chapter 5. I think overall, Chapter 5 had some really cool locations, more good than bad. I'm really excited to see what they do in Chapter 6. I hope we get more locations like Ritzy Riviera and Hazy Hillside, Grand Glacier. I really like those kind of POIs, less stuff like Doom's Courtyard. That's just a worse version of a POI we already had. So we'll see what they do in Chapter 6, but thank you guys for watching. And again, let me know what you guys think in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe.